Coming from you?
I'm going over to the table.
Thank you.
Okay, Tim, just make sure you jot down the call-in information for the public, because that flood time is going to come quickly.
Got it. Quick question, John Franco. I don't see legal in the participants. Will you or Tim swear the applicants in?
Yes, I'll take care of that. She's not able to join us. She's away, I believe. So I'll take care of that.
Fantastic.
Sure, the meeting is now live. Take over. You can take it.
Good evening, all. Welcome to the Monday, July 26, 2021, to our Historic Preservation Special Meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order at 7:14 p.m. Secretary Henderson, can you please read the Notice of Compliance?
The notice requirements provided for in the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied. Notice of this meeting was properly given and published in the North Jersey Herald and News on July 23rd, 2021, and filed with the Clerk of the City of Paterson on July 23rd, 2021, and posted in the Paterson City Hall immediately thereafter.
Thank you, Tim. Can we please have a roll call?
Commissioner DeLees.
Present.
Commissioner Garcia Leon.
Absent.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Absent.
Commissioner Corbo.
Present.
Commissioner Redmond.
Absent.
Commissioner Simpson.
Absent.
Commissioner Walter.
Present.
Vice Chair Raffel.
Present.
Chair Tate.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to move down our agenda to item number 3, new business. We will start with A, which is 735-747 Broadway, also known as 151 East 33rd Street, Block 8412, Lot 1. This is Temple Emmanuel in the Eastside Park Historic District. This will be a plan and review for the school use of a formal ecclesiastic building with sanctuary and attached school. Academy of Greatness and Excellence, LLC, is the applicant. Executive Director, do you have a report for this application?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I would like to tell you my report.
Thank you.
So this evening's application is for a planning review for the mentioned property. I'm going to put up on screen some different documents to please follow along. We're going to have this presentation from me, and then we'll ask the applicants to provide their testimony. I'm going to try to make these documents a little big so everyone can see them. This address and this property is historically known as the Temple Emmanuel, located at 8412, Lot 1, in the city of Paterson. That's on the corner of East 33rd Street and Broadway, in the Eastside Park Historic District. We did receive a letter of intent, a planning board application, and plans as a referral, which has stimulated this meeting or triggered this meeting. And this special meeting request you can see on the screen has been granted to the applicant, and a special meeting at the planning board is scheduled for this coming Thursday, July 29th. So we are glad that commissioners could make this special meeting to try to accommodate the applicant and our planning board so we can provide your input to this process as required by ordinance. So you see our applicant here, and you just need to go over this letter of intent and impact. This was sent out in your pre-meeting packet. Maybe you had a chance to take a look at it. As is noted on the agenda, the applicant seeking site plan and variance approvals required to return and reestablish a K through 12 school program at the site of Temple Emmanuel on East 33rd Street. This is in an R1 zone, and as you'll learn from my presentation, as my presentation goes on, a portion of this property was used as a school historically for quite some time. And of course, the main octagonal building that faces the corner was used as a warship sanctuary. So it's an R1 zone, and we can see that the previous uses I mentioned, historical uses in place, and there are some conditional use for bulk and so forth, and you can see that the site will ask for 50 parking spaces based on 250 students and 9 classrooms, auditorium seating and administrative offices. And as for the auditorium, they're planning to use the sanctuary portion of the property as the auditorium. So it looks like there's an increase of on-site parking from 18 to 22 spaces, and that the school will be run primarily as a drop-off and pick-up staging area to be created as per the site plan, and staggering hours so as to make that work best. As you know, I wanted to familiarize you with the application, but our focus is primarily on the historic preservation elements of this application. So we also received an ask for a planning review application for HPC to be filled out by the applicant, and here it is. This also was sent around to you in your pre-meeting packet. The name of the school to be established is the Academy of Greatness and Excellence LLC. This is a nonprofit entity. We'll hear more about that in a while. And I would like to point out that in the sort of on page 4, as we go through this, the responses to the proposal and the project details narrative. So I'm trying to get to that page. Bear with me here. So, it's currently vacant. The property is currently vacant. Of course, they propose to, use the site again as a school. See the attached letter, which we just looked at. And they do propose to do interior work to alterations to accommodate class layout. And they're not proposing any exterior work. So this is a very thin and straightforward application. There weren't a lot of details given. And we hope that some details will be, kind of ascertained in this application, the applicant's testimony. So those are the application materials, and I would like to now go through some background on the property for some of the newer commissioners and for people who might be watching this presentation. Temple Emmanuel was brought to the Paterson City Council in accordance with our zoning ordinance with the nomination for it to become a municipal historic landmark. This is an important step for any historic building to come under the purview and authorities of the Historic Preservation Office in the city of Paterson by virtue of the zoning law. So I just like to run through this with you. This was done in 2009. You can see the date on screen. This was quite some time ago. The presentation was made in July, and by the time the second reading of the ordinance was read, it was August, most likely August 2009, when this action was finalized. I think I'm going to try to go to a full screen view here to make this a little easier to see. So our criteria for evaluating significance, we always start with that, and there's about 10 of them. We see the first 4 here on screen. All of these, or the majority of these, were found to be supported with regard to this property, and all of the HPC due diligence, staff reports, public meetings before this presentation were all completed, and all the details about each of these criteria were provided to the City Council. This is a great slide to show the location of Temple Emmanuel and its layout. Depiction of the school, and there's a hall and an L-shaped configuration, as well as sort of an entry vestibule, which may or may not still be there. But in any case, the school building, the hall, and the octagonal worship hall for the former synagogue is here visible. And we see our tax map, which has essentially maintained the same footprint. So this building has a tremendous amount of integrity and authenticity. You can see on this map the temple and its location within the boundaries of the Eastside Park Historic District. The Eastside Park Historic District was designated to the State and National Register of Historic Places in 2004. Those designations did not provide the oversight of the local ordinance, and that's the purpose of this designation request in 2009. And may also state that the City Council eventually did pass an overall municipal designation for the Eastside Park Historic District in the footprint that we see on screen. So the Eastside Park Historic District, including Temple Emmanuel and all the constituent buildings within these boundaries, fall under the federal, state, and municipal registers of historic places, so it's designated on all three. So this shows the information that I just mentioned about it being listed in 2004. Here's the letter to show it, and here's some proofs about its association with people in the past, which is under criteria 3. Jacob Fabian, who is the donor of the temple, and had it designed by Fred Whitley Wentworth, and had it constructed and then donated to the Jewish community in Paterson. And you can see some of his bio on the left-hand side. And he's particularly known for sort of the beginning of the movie or motion picture distribution business. And he constructed some of the first, what are called movie palaces, between 1914 and 1929 in northern New Jersey. And they were all designed with an association with Fred Wesley Wentworth, who was also a Paterson architect. These are some examples of the other places that he designed, including the Fabian Theater in downtown Paterson on the lower left. And here's a slide about Fred Wesley Wentworth, the architect of the building, and many other buildings in Paterson and other places in northern New Jersey, as well as other places in the country. So you can see one of the bullet points here on the left. He's an architect of at least 20 prominent buildings in Paterson, many of which are still standing. I know this architect is very familiar to the commissioners. Many of our designated buildings were designed by this architect. Also, it was built by a master builder who is from Paterson, Fred Breland and Fred Wentworth. You can see on the bottom were the architects of these buildings in Paterson. The Cathay building on the lower right, the right aeronautical buildings off of Route 80 that are still there, and Barnard Hospital, which is literally a block or two away from the Temple Emmanuel, and Vice President Hobart's mansion up in Wayne, which is currently on the grounds of William Paterson University, and of course the Masonic Temple, which is front and center here in this slide, located at 385 Broadway. So here we go through, of course, the distinctive characteristics of architecture for this structure. This is a very unique building, defined very much in this early Art Deco styling. All of its character-defining features are visible on the outside and also on the inside. The These are photos from 2009, where during the presentation I gave the council kind of view of the various Art Deco styling details that are in this building architecturally significant. So this on the left side behind the the traffic light pole is the vestibule or the entrance or the main entrance to the building. Here's the front view of it. You can see that there's some beautiful individually crafted and designed bronze entrance doors and 3 bays. The bronze railing leading up the monumental stair approach to the entrance of the building, and flanking with 2 monumental cast bronze lights as well. So you can't see the other one because it's behind the bush that's on the right-hand side. Here's a close-up of these beautiful bronze doors and of the specific Hebrew lettering in the upper frieze panel above each of the entrances, and of the bronze railings, of course, on the stairwell. Here are some other photos of the site in 2009, showing the rear portion of the site, which is actually the school building. And you'll see some contemporary photos. I'll show you these same views, basically, and what they look like today. One characteristic about this site that I think most of you are aware of is there's very little land and very little parking around the boundaries of the property. So you can see in the lower left photo, the sidewalk, is right up against the parking area, and the sidewalk gives way to a very low curb. And, the vehicles are just pulling over the sidewalk and parking. Very little limited parking available on this site as a matter of its historic configuration. The real kind of impressive area of the site is the interior of the sanctuary. This is an overview of the sanctuary's interior. You can see we're looking sort of from a balcony area, looking toward the, let's say, the main altar stage and the beautifully curved seating on either side of the central aisle. Also, there's custom light fixtures hanging, flanking each side, and at that time, the authentic stained glass windows and oculus were still installed in the building. Here's a view looking back toward the balcony where that last photo was taken from, and of course the 3 entrance doors going into the vestibule are like right off to the left of this left center of this photo. Here's some specific view of the balcony seating, fold-up chairs. These are from my recollection of being there, all authentic seating installed when the building was constructed. Looking up at the ceiling, we see again these unique light fixtures and the Art Deco styling, as well as this beautiful oculus stained glass in the center. Also, very intricate painting, very colorful, intricate painting with Hebrew symbolism and Hebrew lettering along the different parts of the altar. I'm sorry, of the ceiling of the walls. These are some depictions of the stained glass, and here's a picture of the oculus. If you've ever seen this, it was very beautiful. And these stained glass windows, the bronze pictures that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, these were all removed by the actual Temple Emmanuel. Later on, after the sale of the building, the building was sold around 2008 from the Jewish congregation in Temple Emmanuel. They moved out of town, but when they sold the building, they reserved the right to be able to come back and remove the stained glass artwork from the building within a certain window of time, and they actually carried that out. It was probably I'm going by recollection, probably around 2011 that this occurred. In place of the stained glass throughout the building, they put in plain whether it's plexi or glass, infill, like just replacement, glazing, very plain, nothing to really talk about, just to keep the building watertight, of course, and this was important for keeping water out of the building to replace the glazing after removing the stained glass. So that concludes the presentation that I have to show you, to give you some background on the site. I'm going to now switch over to some contemporary photos to show you, so you can have a chance to now compare what you just saw in the presentation to contemporary conditions. So this is a photo that Tim and I took these photos just in the past few days over last week. So these are very recent conditions that you're going to see. So this is the view of the corner of 33rd and Broadway, looking directly at the front facade. You can see both streets to the left and right. And this is the side of the building on Broadway. I'm sorry, these are not in order. It has to do with the way that the photos are numbered, so I apologize. This is a close-up view of the back of the school portion of the building. You can see this is a two-story portion, and I would like to point out the replacement windows on the second floor. We saw them in the 2009 slides, so they had been replaced some time ago, these windows. This is a kind of corner view. You can see the reference windows and that kind of awning on the building that I just showed you on the right side of the frame. And you'll see more of these replacement windows on the second floor of the school side of the building. The property line, again, is very tight and very visible here with the white fence defining the residential neighbor, and the property that we're talking about is right on the other side of the white fence. This is a close-up view of the same, just wanting to show you the condition of the windows and of this decorative coping, concrete cast stone coping that is visible. So moving around to the sanctuary, this is what I would call the rear of the sanctuary, where the L-shaped brick building is, mated to it. This would be considered the general entrance or the everyday entrance to the school portion of the building here at the left side. And here's a close-up of that portion. Some of the stained glass is still here in these 3 days. They were not removed, but they're not nearly as decorative as the ones that were in the sanctuary. So I have a close-up to show you what the conditions are. And we still have the decorative, unique side letting to the entrance. I always remember the entrance door being this fire-rated industrial door that you see, being installed there. Here's a close-up of these sort of poor conditions on the right side of that entrance door we just looked at. You can see there's all kinds of issues here going on. It's also a stained glass on the right and an authentic multi-pane 6-light window here on the left side. There's peeling paint. There's looks like some repointing done, and this plywood. I don't know if someone maybe broke in and they just plywooded it up some time ago, but nonetheless, here's a close-up view of those 3 days of stained glass windows of either steel sash, possibly they're leaded. You can see also that their conditions are in poor shape, poor condition. Here's a photo of the entire facade in its current condition. You'll notice the same frieze panel, the same temple manual, and the 3 frieze panels above the entrance doors in Hebrew lettering. You can see, as I mentioned before, the 3 original bronze doors, double doors have been removed. The bronze railing has been removed. On the left edge of the frame, you'll see that the unique lighting fixture, the bronze lighting fixture, has been removed. This was all part of what I believe the Jewish congregation did when they removed the stained glass. And you can see the vegetation is just sort of grown into all the walking surfaces, leaving some very uneven and questionable conditions. close-up of the lighting fixture just to demonstrate that the bronze has been removed. I see a lot of mortar degradation and loss of mortar in these joints on this particular feature. The steps are in poor condition, significant loss of mortar, meaning that the water is most likely getting right down behind these steps into the supporting structures underneath them. These are large granite, kind of monumental stone pieces that are usually laid on top of like a brick or stone foundation. You can also see the pedestals for the bronze railings that were cut and removed. Here, looking from Broadway toward the vestibule, I'm showing an invasive species. This tree has grown quite substantially. It's pretty close to the building. It's actually touching the building. This is another issue that could compromise the staining and continue to put biological growth on the building. And this is the same view I showed you in one of the earlier photos, looking from Broadway. And looking slightly to the right, we see the edge of the property line and the entrance to the school, and here's to the left, looking at the sidewalk along Broadway. The tree is as big as the building now. You can see it's really, really large, very much encroaching on this building and touching it. There are two trees on this side of the building that have grown very massive, and by their species, I believe they were planted trees. These were landscape trees that were planted some time ago, and they've done very well. They've gotten as big as the building, and now kind of are imposing. Here's the entrance to what I believe this awning was put on to be an entrance to a former school that was established here in the building a few years ago. Ever since the Temple Emmanuel came and removed the stained glass windows. And here's a lower entrance again that there's some questionable conditions and poor conditions happening here, not only with the railing, but also with the entrance doors. It looks almost like the black, kind of tarp you see may have been placed there to keep the water from getting into the building. I did not have the opportunity, nor was I invited to enter the building, so I just was able to see through the window, and you can see this. I'm not sure what I'm looking at here. This was part of the Oculus or not, but it's definitely in different conditions or pieces that are missing. This is, in my opinion, is not the Oculus we saw in the previous photo. I'm pretty sure that was removed in its entirety. So maybe this was something that was left behind or something that was put in as a replacement. Just some close-ups of the school portion of the building. If you can see here, I'll try to blow this particular picture up just a little bit. I just wanted to point out that I've noticed these conditions are rather ubiquitous in the brick portion of the building. They're right up here. So you can see where the lintels of these openings and this very defined cracking along the mortar joints in the brick, where the brick is sort of pushing away. This is happening on both edges, and you can see it repeated on the left side of frame here, the same condition. I've observed these conditions on many of the openings, the small ones, the large ones, throughout the brick structure. This is likely from the use of this angle iron or metal lintel, which has gotten rusted, because you can't maybe see it in the photo, but I observed that it's completely exposed. So it definitely took on rust, and this is a phenomenon called rust jacking, where the rust has expanded in its mortar joint and pushed up on the mortar and on the substrate above it, creating this cracking. So this is something that has probably been going on for a long time, and isn't necessarily a structural issue at this point. However, it does exist, and I wanted to point that out in this presentation. So that concludes the photo overview for current conditions. The presentation from 2009 gave you some context with regard to the status of the building between now and then. And again, a number of years have gone by since since then. Actually, more than a decade has gone by between these photos. You saw the applicant's application, and I had the opportunity to speak with the applicant about tonight, and I'd like to invite Mr. Maluk to come forward to be sworn in. He also is joined by his attorney. I'll ask Mr. Maluk to be sworn in, and then we can go on with the testimony. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Executive Director. At this time, I'd like to ask the applicant to come forward to be sworn in.
I'm here.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Would you like me to comment, or are you going to ask me any questions? I just want to make sure. Sure.
Well, what this time is for is for you to introduce yourself, tell about your institution.
Sure.
You can tell about yourself. You can tell about the school and its status and the school that you own, what you are interested in about this building, what you'd like to do with it, those kind of details, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. My name is Wahid Maluk. I am a board member of four board members for the Academy of Greatness and Excellence. And just for the record, the name of that school is Academy of Greatness and Excellence, not LLC. It's a New Jersey non-profit corporation. So we will correct that on the application, but it's not LLC. We are a non-profit organization. We started in 2013 as early childhood school, and then we grow through the time to from pre-K to 12. Right now we have two locations, one in Teaneck and one in Ridgefield Park. And the school has a very good reputation. Right now we have about 500 students, and this location will be used for more expansion. As I said, we are nonprofit. The board members are volunteers. All of us are volunteers. And the staff, of course, and the principal, they do get paid. They are employees of the organization. This is the history of AGE. We get interested in this building because we do have many students would like to join AGE, and we have long waiting lists. So we thought that place would be good to expand, and it's close to Teaneck, and also it's good for the community in Paterson, like to have a school with this kind of quality that AGE provides. And the AGE is the acronym for Academy of Greatness and Excellence. Unfortunately, after seeing the building today and the condition, which I think it was presented very well, thank you. I do have some picture for the building from inside, which reflects how bad the condition is. And it keeps, actually 2 years ago when we started the process of buying the building, it was in a lot better shape than it is now. So hopefully by the time we get into the building from inside, it's not going to be that bad, because when we saw the building a year and a half ago, I think it was before the pandemic, the window in the sanctuary was broken, the one in the middle, and the water was going through right into the sanctuary at the bottom. And I don't think anyone did anything with it. So I am expecting the water damage to be a lot inside. We're not planning really, because we are a non-profit organization, so we are not planning to do anything that's it's not necessary for us to do. We would like to use the school the way it is, but all the walls inside are like they have mold, so I think it would be a lot of wall replacements. It will be a lot of fixing. We are not changing the structure, but one thing that we are very sure that we need to do are the seats in the sanctuary. We cannot use it the way it is right now because it will be used for the students as a multimedia center where they can display their projects, like the science projects and science fairs, where they meet, where they compete, and a lot of intellectual competition like Model UN, giving speeches and things like that. So I don't think we will be able to keep the seats the way it is right now. And even the use of the seats right now would be safety hazard for early childhood students, like to go in and sit in the folding chair, and it's very hard to fold. So this is one of the major changes that we know we have to do as soon as we take the building to make it possible to use for our purpose. This is the major changes that we think we will do. Mostly will be fixing and restoring whatever is fixable right now, changing windows, because those windows, first of all, I don't think they have any historic value because they were all replaced recently, but they were replaced with very cheap windows. So when it comes to the like insulation and stuff, I don't think they are the proper windows. I hope we don't have to change them, but I'm expecting that we need to do so. Most of the light features inside, I don't know if they were stolen or they were taken, so there is nothing historic about them. So anything need to be changed, we will change it. And this are the changes we are proposing at this point, mostly fixing what needs to be fixed and just make it usable.
Mr. Meatlook, does that conclude your presentation?
It does, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At this time, I'd like to invite our commissioners to ask the applicant questions about the testimony that was just given. Please raise your hand and the executive director will call on you accordingly.
Commissioner Walter?
Yes, you were mentioning light fixtures. I believe the light fixtures in the sanctuary, the hanging ones, are original to the building, and they're still there and still intact. Is that not true?
I don't think so, but if they are there, we'll keep them there. They're not gonna bother us in any way.
Okay, I can see the pictures hanging there through the window, so that's why I'm mentioning that. It's visible from the outside of the windows.
I think there are two sets of pictures. They show the pictures that were taken 2009. I am not sure if they exist today, but as I said, we can invite the commissioner or the board representative to come into the building. Right now, we don't own the building. We did not close on it yet. But I think we can ask the current landlord to arrange access to the building to see what is there and what is not.
Okay, but those light fixtures I can see from the outside. You can see them through the window. They're hanging from the ceiling.
Okay, you see them now?
Well, about a week ago when I went by.
These are old pictures. If we can look at the recent pictures, and we can verify they are there, we'll keep them there.
Okay. Would they agree to keep them original to the building? Also, windows, you said you're not touching anything on the outside, but the windows are considered the outside. So that's got to be part of this presentation, what you're going to do with windows if you're planning on doing any renovations to the outside, which includes windows.
Yeah, those windows were replaced in 2011 by factory windows. I think whatever is broken, we will replace it if we can keep them. Again, we are not looking for extra expenses, so if we can match it, whatever is broken, or if we need to change them, we'll change them.
Okay, one more question. On the outside, on the front facade, there's all that Hebrew lettering. You're planning on keeping that there, or are you planning on doing something with that?
No, of course we'll keep them. Actually, we do admire the building. We want our children to, it represents values for us, so we want the children to be proud that they are in, like growing up in a historic building and be proud of it. And that's why we are planning to keep the outside the way it is. I think the only thing, of course, we have to do our washing and try to fix whatever we need to fix. This year, what we look at, the school part, I don't know what we're going to do with those bricks because I think those bricks can be matched, so we'll fix them the way they are. The most important part here is the octagonal part with the temple here. We need to figure out if we're gonna put a sign with 3 letters at the top without changing anything in the structure, without drilling or anything. We'll see what we will do, like maybe in those 3 columns above the name of Temple Emmanuel, we'll just like put AGE on those little columns and that's it. We will try to do whatever we can not to change anything outside. Just want to keep everything the way it is.
Of course, you realize anything on the outside has to come through the Historic Preservation Commission even in the future.
Yeah, we are not planning to change those letters. Everything will stay the same. Even the name, we would like to keep it. As I said again, we try to preserve it the way it is because actually we bought it because the value that it represents to the city, but we still want to make sure the inside can be used for the school and no safety hazard will be for the students. So we want to make sure that the walls and the floors and everything in good shape for the students, and also it can be used. So this is the main thing. But the outside, I hope everything can be preserved the way it is.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have. Of course, during discussion, we'll have more to say. Thank you.
Okay, this is the chair. Mr. Miluk, I have a question regarding the exterior. So you say you're not touching the exterior shell, and all of your major work will be on the interior. However, you mentioned that you guys currently don't own the building and you're looking to close. Have you guys worked with a existing survey of the interior structure? Because the reason I'm asking is going back to Commissioner Walter's question regarding some of the existing historical lights and important detailing on the inside. I'm just curious to know if there's some sort of survey that you guys are working from that identifies the existing versus the renovation in 2011, and just kind of help us understand the landscape of what's actually happening, because I do believe an executive director could speak more to this, that there are some protections regarding certain things, but we'll get to that shortly. Did you guys do some kind of survey of the exterior, all of the areas that need some attention? So you guys are just doing a visual observation at this moment, and one of the conditions would be for you guys to basically clean up all of the issues that are there now.
That's correct. I just want to rephrase one thing. When we said we are not touching outside, we are not changing. But of course, like we need to beautify the building. We need to make it to look look good and admirable. Or we just don't want to keep the building in a bad shape. So if something needs to be fixed, or like for example, if some erosion in any area in the corner or anything, we will try to restore it just to look presentable from outside. We don't want to just keep it look like an old building, and just like we want to beautify it without changing the character of the building.
Sure. With that being said, John Franco actually he gave us a presentation showing some of the historical images of this building. Do you guys plan to reintroduce some of the elements, such as the guardrails coming up to the three bays that we see in front of us on the screen?
Yeah, for example, of course, we will be required to do the handrails and all this kind of thing. Of course, it's not going to be in bronze. It will be like a model thing. We'll try to match something to look right and good, but I mean, we will not put something like fancy or let's say like expensive. It's going to be aluminum. We'll put it aluminum. If it's going to be iron, we will put whatever would look good out there. But again, we cannot really match the old way it was built. Maybe the material does not exist. The material is very expensive, but we'll try to do as much as we can, again, to keep the character of the building.
Confirmed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions from the commissioners?
Chair.
Yes.
Hi, how is everyone? So I guess the comment, first a comment, and I guess maybe a proposed condition of this planning approval. You know, one is obviously commending the applicant for coming forward and, you know, taking a building that has been vacant for several years and, you know, bringing life back into it and, you know, taking that, you know, next step in, you know, preserving the building. And the second, I guess, in terms of planning, I know that there is sort of this, you know, commentary about the exterior, and I think what we're also forgetting, which I think would be important for, you know, conditions of this planning approval, is it's not just really the exterior of the building, but, you know, there is other site work involved, you know, like the materials of the steps, the sidewalk, you know, a lot of these surfaces that we see on the outside that are going to be necessary to provide a safe, you know, access to the building, especially once, you know, it's opened to children and adults. So just keeping in mind that I think one of the conditions should also be, you know, the review and approval of materials used for, you know, all surfaces, not just the facade of the building.
Great point.
I completely agree. Again, we will not try to put something very modern with that would look like not that pleasant with something historic. So what I said that we will try to match whatever is there with like recent material. Like for example, maybe it will not be granite blocks, but it would look like granite blocks. We'll try to keep the color. We're not going to put marble, for example. We will just try to match. And again, we're a non-profit organization, so we will be cost effective, but we would like to keep it in a good shape for something we all be proud of. And I am hoping, and I'm very glad that you realize that it's a challenge for us to take a building like this and with all the cost to restore it and maintain it and keep it for the community. So we are hoping that we will receive a lot of help and support from the board to help us to bring that building to the way it should be, and also help us to be cost effective and work with the resources we have. So I am going into this challenge with my team and the rest of AGE family, hoping that we will receive the help and support from the municipality in this challenge for all of us. Because if we end up not taking it, it will just be like a site there. It will not help anyone. So I am just hoping for this kind of help and support from the board.
Thank you for that, Mr. Miluk. I do want to add, just kind of echoing the Vice Chair, Rafael. With the exterior, you guys don't have any drawings at the moment, so once you get further along and you identify the new elements that you will be introducing to the site, we'll need to review that, similar to what Commissioner Walter said earlier, just so that, going along with bringing this back to life, we want to make sure that either the elements are harmonious with the site and the existing fabric, and there's nothing that's outside of the boundaries of what we have in our guidelines for this type of building and the historical nature of a structure like this. So there'll be layers to kind of unpack as you get further along in your journey to create this school.
Want to add to what Will just stated, and as you take the next steps in preserving the structure, we have a great HPC staff who will help where needed, especially when it comes to material selection, and then you may see all of us again at some point that will also help you provide some suggestions and better tools to get you through.
We welcome your recommendation. We will need your help, as I stated.
Commissioners, do we have any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, this is Director Archimedes.
Confirmed.
I'd like to ask the question: is the school associated with the mosque that is nearby across the street in the Eastside Park Historic District? Is there an association?
No, the school is not associated with any organization or mosques or anyone in the area. Yes, we are in the same, we belong to the same faith, but as far as association or affiliation, we are not.
Okay, thank you. I looked at your website before the meeting and I saw that would you consider, you didn't mention this in your testimony, but would you consider this a religious school? And can you explain your answer?
Yes, we are religious based, like Catholic school, any Catholic school, but we do welcome anyone to join the school. Again, this is it's going to be mainly early childhood, and anyone in the area who is interested to join the school, we welcome anyone. This is a private school, so we don't say no to anyone. The only thing is we do have some subject, and I will just take this opportunity to explain when we say religious school, like we actually have the Common Core curriculum for New Jersey. We are accredited school. We are STEM certified school. We are actually the only school in the United States which is accredited and STEM certified when it comes to science curriculum. And we just, in addition to that, we teach Arabic, we teach Islamic studies as subjects. So anyone can join the school and ask to be excluded from those subjects, so they are not forced to learn those subjects. So this is how the school operates.
Okay, thank you very much for your explanation. The idea about removing the seats in the sanctuary, is that for religious worship, or is that for some other purpose? Are they going to be replaced with other seats?
No, they were actually could be left empty because we are not converting the building to a mosque. We are not doing that. The only reason we are doing that, we need the place for the student. For example, when we have science fair, for morning assembly, all these kind of things, we need the space for it. Basically, it will be used as it's a multimedia center. So it will be used for workshops, for meeting for the students, for gathering. If they display their science projects and stuff, it will be used for that. Meeting with the parents, activities, extracurricular activities, after school program. So the seats would limit our use for it, use it only as an auditorium, the building is very small. So having this place just to be used only as auditorium will not be efficient for our operation.
Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do we have any additional questions from the commissioners for the applicant?
I don't see any, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to know from the secretary, do we have a resolution statement of purpose for this application?
We do, Mr. Chairman. Resolution number 2106 directs the Executive Director of the Historic Preservation Commission to prepare a memorandum containing the Commission's recommendations to the Planning Board and/or the Board of Adjustment regarding the property located at 735-747 Broadway, Paterson, New Jersey, Block 8412, Lot 1, situated within the designated Eastside Park Historic District.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have a motion for the prepared resolution?
Moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. Secretary, we have Commissioner Rafael for the motion and then Commissioner Corbo for the second.
Confirmed, thank you.
Okay, so now the resolution is on the floor. It's open for discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to start off discussion, there was an important fact that I left out of the presentation that I just wanted to bring up on screen. I see I have a document here to show. I'm getting it open now. Just give me a moment, please. So on screen there is a page from the City of Paterson Land Development Ordinance. This is under administration enforcement. We call this commonly, when we talk about this, the Historic Preservation Ordinance. It's a section of the larger zoning ordinance. So here on screen, I've highlighted a certain aspect of the ordinance to point out. This is one of the situations where this portion of the ordinance under section 300-13.10 would apply. So it says actions not requiring review. Number one, changes to the interior of historic structures shall not require review except in cases A or B. So A is when you see changes on the inside that are visible on the outside, and it happens actually quite often. And we do have to make comments about sometimes architects draw walls in the middle of windows, for example, or they put up a wall in front of a window to block a window and sort of negate its purpose, as an example. And B, in the case that the architectural significance of a historic structure is closely related to the use and layout of its interior space, such as in a church, a courthouse, public buildings, etc., and or the interior is the character-defining feature and finishes of the space. So this particular building does fit this criteria B, where the sanctuary is a highly significant, custom-designed part of the significance of the architecture. Its colors, finishes, Hebrew lettering, all are what we call architecturally defining features to the building. So this part of the ordinance I'm demonstrating pertains to that the commission would have close review to officially scrutinize the interior changes that are proposed. Mr. Muluk asked me when I went over this with him about whether this would apply to the school portion of the building, and my answer to him was no. The school portion of the building is very specifically laid out as a school and will be reused as a school, so the change of finishes or reconfiguration of walls and so forth would not be considered a character defining feature to be reviewed on the interior of the school portion of this building. The standard, one of our preservation standards that we go by has to do with use. I just want to clarify this as my final point. The Preservation Commission does not have the purview to insist or change a proposed use of the building. However, it does have the purview to comment on the proposed use. And if the changes required by a proposed use actually compromise the historic integrity of the building, specifically on the outside, then of course there would be a conflict with preservation goals. I'm not saying that's the case here, but I'm saying that some of the other guidance that's given is the best possible scenario that we can have in preserving a building into its future reuse is to have an application like this one that looks to put the building back into its original use, meaning the reason the building was constructed or the purpose of the architecture. So we know that at least half of the square footage of this site was established historically as an education center, specifically as a Jewish school, a religious school, and that's the same reuse that's being proposed here tonight. We would have a great application if we had a Jewish temple coming back and of course wanted to worship in the sanctuary, but that is not the case. But we are looking at the proposal to reuse the sanctuary with a minimally invasive way so it can be used as part of the school function, but with the proposal, as I understand it, to really not modify any of these specifically distinctive interior finishes and or lettering and purposes. So the character defining features of the sanctuary must remain intact, and I believe I should suggest to you that that's a comment that should be carried forward into our recommendations. So I wanted to point out those three topics. One, the existence of this part of the zoning ordinance about review of the interior going forward into design review, and then number two, the reuse of the building being kind of a very high mark with regard to the proposed reuse. I'd like to say that Mr. Muluk mentioned that this is a sale or a purchase of this building. The organization, the school, the nonprofit school, operates two other schools, and this is an expansion. This means that the organization, from my perspective, is doing well and probably will be successful in looking forward to making significant investments over time that will, kind of make sure that their purchase is protected and that their, outcomes that they're looking for will be served. So when we talk about preservation, rehabilitation, reconstruction, those kind of avenues of approach to the building, right now what I heard Mr. Muluk describing was called the preservation aspect. And that is something that we also need to comment on, I believe, in your comments with regard to the need for preservation. Preservation means the whole discussion that was had about the upkeep of the exterior and interior so that it would be made ready for reuse, but the preservation of the elements as they are, with the purpose of adjusting and fixing them as needed so that they come into serviceability. So chipping paint or where things need to be painted and or weeds need to be removed and mortar needs to be put, etc. Those are the preservation aspects of the activity called preservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director. I see Rich Walter has his hand raised.
Yes, I just want to talk to the commissioners about my concerns. I hope that the applicant, and maybe this is towards the applicant more, but that he's aware when he says he's, what he can afford. Our concern is the historic aspect of the building. The cost of rehabbing that building is not our concern. So we're gonna base our decisions on that building, on what's best for the building. And, that's gotta be, drummed into the head of anybody proposing to buy that building, that the best thing for the building might not be the cheapest way of going. So that has to be a concern. I'm also concerned about losing that sanctuary as a auditorium type building, losing all those chairs. It's an assembly building. It's an auditorium type building, and I think that character should be kept and preserved. But, and the outside is gonna need major work, and every single thing that's done on the outside has to come to the commission to be reviewed. And that's my concerns.
Thank you, Commissioner Walter. This is Chair Tate. I just want to kind of echo some of the sentiments of the previous commissioner. This is an ambitious project, and at the end of the day, it's our duty to preserve the integrity, the historical context, content of the building as much as we possibly can. And my concern, just looking at the ordinance, section 300-13.10, which was read by our executive director, the significance of the structure and its interior spaces. I mean, we understand from your presentation, we understand from the client's presentation, or rather the applicant's presentation, that they're focusing primarily on the exterior. But we don't have any context of what, outside of the verbal testimony of what that interior will look like. And, as Commissioner Walter said, I was by the building recently, and you could see some of the elements beyond the window. I can't tell you exactly to what degree or condition that they're in, but I think one of the conditions should be, and this is up for discussion, that there's a full survey of the interior, photographs, whatever documentation we can get of the current state of it. I understand that the applicant stated that there is water damage around certain areas where the water penetrated some of the existing masonry and the lintels around openings. That should also be included, and a well-documented elevation showing where repointing, maybe sandblasting, or whatever the case may be, that's required for this structure, because we have to take account of what's here now. We understand that this project, this exercise is about preservation and the facelift of an exterior shell as well as an interior fit out. But we need to document what we have now, so there's not that 10-year gap between this application and whatever the future of this building has. And that's my perspective on this. I see Commissioner Walter's hand back up. Is it another question or a comment?
Sorry, I did not lower it, but yes, I agree with that. A survey of the building should be part of our approval.
Okay, this is Director Arcanini. Mr. Chairman, I have a comment. I'm not saying this in opposition to Commissioner Walter's previous comments or to yours. I just want to kind of drill down into it a little bit. I listened to the applicant's testimony, and the way I would say it, or the way that I understood it, was very much like the intention of the activity we thought that's defined as preservation. So that means to identify certain deficiencies and seeking to correct them as needed. However, the building, as you see it on screen, the building in comparison with the exterior of the building I'm talking about now, that's in comparison with the slides from 2009, there's been little significant change to the quality, authenticity, and well, there has been some degradation of the conditions, and as the applicant stated, some of these conditions will need to be addressed, but others will not. And from the point of view of surveying, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, and then making a plan for kind of investment and a phased approach, which we do in any sort of formal preservation plan that we do for historic structures of this status. This is a monumental historic building, an assembly building, frankly, and it does call for a lot of sensitive responsibility. I hear what Commissioner Walter's concerns are within that regard. However, what I'm trying to say is, with his presentation, that he does not plan to change anything structurally or add anything to this building, and rather not remove anything from the building. These are very important elements to keep in mind in his testimony. These are very important elements that we act as we are like we always do with applications, but also which is part of our mandate to assist our applicants, assist our owners in finding advice and the right professional advice for that matter about how to approach the different degradation and conditions that need to be addressed, and in a phased way that can be executed economically and with the most important concerns put first, which is in many cases you buy a building to reuse it. We cannot, have historic buildings that are reused if the owners don't address the needs for reuse. So we've done hundreds and maybe thousands of applications where that is always front and center for new owners and for also current owners. They have to continue to use these buildings. The building has not been used in maybe over a decade, and certainly there's going to need to be work. The applicants advised that as part of the preservation compliance, after this hearing and after planning board approval of the application, all changes would need to be reviewed through what's called the design review process, and I think we've made him quite aware of that. So in thinking about ownership of the building, he has that responsibility as well, and we want to work as partners toward these goals because a historic building needs to be reused, and reuse needs to address these in a phased approach that's sensitive to the goals of reuse and also to the phasing and of course, front and center the needs of the building, as Commissioner Walter said. For example, this is a picture on screen of the facade. The doors are what they are at this point. I don't know if the applicant is going to change these doors or just paint them, for example. That's a conversation that we can have afterwards. The same conversation about the hand railings that we had. He's going to need hand railings, and we'll come to discuss how those hand railings will be put. However, they will not be put back in their original configuration, and I believe that's probably the expectation of the board as well. So I think these are important topics to discuss tonight.
Confirmed. Just to kind of follow up with your comments, I think my approach was more so about the exterior visual impact of the compartmentalization of the sanctuary. So whatever visual impact comes from that, doesn't that trigger the ordinance, the 300-13.10, the actions not requiring review, sub item B?
Well, yes, I think what you're saying is if the proposal was to put up partition walls of any kind, even if they're only 8 feet high, and create like office spaces on the sanctuary floor, and like remove all the seats and put in that kind of space. That would be reviewable. That would be detrimental to the appreciation of the integrity of the interior. I think that would be an issue. However, that wasn't what was presented. What was presented was the use of the interior, the continued use of the interior as an assembly space. The difference, though, as Commissioner Walter pointed out, is right now, the way the benches are, it's everyone faces forward and watches a religious service. Or, you know, it's like we have a handful of activities that we sit in seats and we look forward at a stage. Well, whether it's a conference, a lecture, a movie, a musical performance, but those are limited, and not all of them overlap with all of the various school functions that need to happen in a multi-use space. It is a small site. And true to the applicant's testimony, they need to use the interior of this building for different kinds of assembly uses. It's not far off from the assembly use that it was originally intended. Other than these chairs that fold up, are safety hazards probably in a fire. Probably also in just a safety issue with regard to small children. They do plan to have small children in the building, so I can understand those concerns. I'm not an architect. I can't comment about the efficacy of the code with regard to if those seats from the 20s, if they still serve the ability to get people out of the building in a fire. I'm not sure, but I'm just, in general speaking, kind of what some of the concerns that the applicant has. So to answer your question, giving a lot of detail about that. But yes, compartmentalizing the interior would be reviewable, and so far the specific direction that it is planned doesn't seem to be interference with regard to interior partitioning.
Confirmed. Thank you. Do we have any other comments from the commissioners on the floor during the open discussion portion of the application?
Yes, thank you. I am happy to see this building be reused, and I think it's a wonderful undertaking. I do want to agree with the rest of the commission. I'm very concerned with the exterior, and I just want Mr. Maloof to, I guess, understand that when he says beautifying the building and making it look good, we all want that, but it's what we do here as part of the HPC is more than just aesthetics. So, like it's been said before, we have to get back to the history of the building and the context of the building. And so as long as everything is known that it's going to come back to review for design review, when we know more about the changes and the rehabs that will be taking place, then, I think this is fine. Thank you.
Well put, Commissioner Corbo. Do we have any other comments on the floor?
Commissioner Walter, I just had a curiosity. Are we planning to put any conditions on this? We just gonna bring this up as is?
If I'm not mistaken,
I will. I don't have the hand feature, I'm sorry, so it's kind of urged. No, I mean, to Richard's point, and I know, right, for the purpose of what we're trying to do now is to, so that we create a memorandum that's gonna go to the planning board, that's gonna be heard this week. So, if we have certain conditions that apply to planning, and the use, and we should proceed like one, right? Obviously, the reminder that, they're gonna have to come back to the HPC for design review of all, finishes and et cetera for the facade, and exterior work, right? So number two, I know I mentioned about, all of the finishes for, the sidewalks, ADA accessibility, et cetera, that should be, compatible. So I think that needs to be referenced in the memo. Obviously all of our points about, right, the positive of, bringing this, building back, into a reuse that I would say, I guess, is appropriate because, right, it is sort of a meeting setting. There's it's offices, it's, it sort of fits, right now, given other uses that, might have been presented. I guess if there's any other, preservation matters in terms of the design that we want noted, now would be the time to add those.
Thank you, Vice Chair. No, I think that's great. I think we should include, those as part of our conditions. I believe the executive director mentioned earlier that, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but the applicant shall identify certain deficiencies that will be, rehab on the exterior. So we can put in a condition that the applicant will identify what's currently, the openings and the masonry, like whatever issues they see on the facade of the structure, they will identify it as part of the condition so that we can go back in the future and observe to make sure that it's rectified. Is that appropriate, Executive Director, to add as a condition?
Well, let me try putting it another way. I think we're on this, I think it's the same thing, but I have a different way of saying it. The building has not, as Mr. Mueller testified, right? The building is not ready to occupy. It's been, empty for a long time. There's been water that's gotten into the interior. There may be other issues on the exterior that we're not seeing that contribute to, let's say, water damage on the inside, or there might be some hazardous conditions that are observed, like shortly after the sale is made. But basically, I think everyone can, understand that when he's saying he's not going to make any changes, like there was one line of a response in the application, no exterior work or changes are proposed, and you have to be sort of specific. Thinking about work and changes and preservation versus rehabilitation versus restoration, for example, those are all sort of under the more broad category of work. So work is going to be needed. He needs to put in handrails. That's work. He needs to clean up all the walking surfaces. That's work. He may need to put in ADA compliance here that we're not discussing at this time. That's going to be work. That might make an alteration to the building that he's not ready to talk about right now because plans are not developed. So those are some changes or work that that are kind of under the umbrella. So the building can't be unlike what's on the application. It can't just be you're not doing any work to the outside of the building. Some work needs to be done. It's reviewable. We made that point in our discussion tonight. I'm sure he's well aware of all of this now. And I think the statement that we need to make is some work needs to be done. And it needs to be done and invested in on the exterior in order to protect the building. Just as much as the primary goal is to be able to occupy the building and use it on the inside, the exterior cannot go untouched after all these years of being neglected. So we have to craft a statement about requiring them to do work on the outside that's compatible with their occupancy of the building on the inside. So that's the way that I would restate it. I think that's sort of what you mean, though. Am I right about that?
That's confirmed. That's confirmed.
Yeah. So it's a little bit longer way, but we had this discussion, Mr. Wu, looking up when we had our informal meeting, and I think that he also understands what that point of view is. And I think that we're on the same page with that regard. The character defining features of the building are, for example, in this facade, the Hebrew lettering, should not be obstructed, removed, or covered with signage. Mr. Mullook, I believe, was right on target when he mentioned we do want to put a sign about our school on the front of the building or on the side of the building or on some part that would be agreeable and would be, how would you do it? So he mentioned, you'd put it in a situation maybe above Pilaster or in between each of these bays with three simple letters that wouldn't necessarily detract from the rest of the building. We would also talk about maybe not putting the signage on the building at all, but rather put a side sign, like a standing sign at eye level would be a more appropriate approach than putting it on the building. So this is a discussion that we would have in design review, and it sounds like Mr. Moore is sensitive to this.
And this is Rich again. I just have one more, another comment. I think we should be talking about the interior of the building a little more. I think we should be, talking about removing or covering any of the historic elements of the inside of the building. Also, the school that was the Jewish school there at one time was the classrooms up in the back. That room to the left of the sanctuary, that large room there, that was a assembly room where they had shows and plays and dinners for their congregation and stuff. That wasn't part of the school, so we have to be sensitive of any dividing up of that area also.
Thank you, Commissioner Walter.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to remind commissioners that in general, we haven't heard from everyone. I do need to know if everyone in general wants to support the application to the planning board. Is that the direction we're headed in with some of these extra comments? I need to hear that from commissioners so that it can be clear in the memorandum.
Okay, Commissioner Walter, in general, I am definitely in favor of the reuse of this building, and I think this is an appropriate reuse of this building. Some of the elements I think we should have, discussions and recommendations on.
Vice Chair, I second what Rich has stated. I am gonna, I guess, again, repeat myself, that is an appropriate use for the building. I support the work that they're going to invest in it. In terms of conditions with the facade, if we want to be more specific, repointing the building, cleaning the stone. I think the doors, based on, I have not been to this site in a while. We should probably look at doors and how best we want to mimic its historic doors. The steps, the railings, which I know was mentioned before, trying to, replicate that if possible. Obviously in, appropriate material, I'm sure there's different types of material, but we can get that more specific into when we get to the design review. I do think, and I agree, we do this a lot with downtown signs, that there should be a clause in it about signage. Although me personally, I'm not sure if I'm opposed to if it's pin lettering above Temple Emmanuel, but even aside, if the right of way allows it, having a nice sign on the outside, in the corner, as you approach the building on Broadway wouldn't be a bad idea. And then I am not sure, just because the picture that you have on screen, it looks like the tree is in the building. Maybe it's not, but maybe, landscaping, kind of removing the trees away from the building, and that's more just, again, to protect it, and maybe they can come up with a different landscaping plan. But those are my comments.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So I guess I'm echoing the commission and sort of getting the conditions together. So the applicant shall not remove the Hebrew lettering or obstruct the existing messaging. All visual additions and or finishes to the exterior shall be reviewed by the HPC in a design review. Signage shall be reviewed and approved by the HPC in a design review meeting. And the applicant is to, this is where the language gets a little, Executive Director, help me with this, please. The applicant is to rehab the existing facade. I'm trying to figure out how to craft it where, let me pressure.
I can say that it's like the way that I would recommend that this is understood is we're not creating work that is not proposed, for example, by the applicant. Like repointing the whole building is one example. Or that's not what's proposed, and that's probably not what's needed. But there are some limited site work that's needed, including removal of the invasive tree. There's some trees that are not planted trees that probably should be removed because they're threatening the building. The one that you see on screen that we pointed out, for example, this could be something that's brought up. Sort of general overall preservation activities. And I would be more vague about it because it's up to the applicant to discuss that, with us. I just think it's important to make note of these activities, these so-called work activities, because they are going to be necessary. And you can't just focus on the interior without making some of the work happen on the outside. That was the point of my whole point that I was making before. So I would put that in a more vague way, okay?
Confirmed. Let's see. Are there any more comments? I see Joyce Corvo and Rich Walter.
I'm sorry, mine was up from before.
All right.
Same here. My hand's not up. I don't know what's going on, but
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like you're ready for a roll call. We have a lot of discussion, and based on the context of the discussion, I think there can be a robust support of the application with reminders about all these things we discussed. Many of these are under the purview of the ordinance as it is regardless.
Okay, fantastic. And we'll have the secretary send out the conditions to the applicant moving forward. Oh.
Mr. Chairman, I lost you. Are you ready for roll call?
Yes.
Commissioner DeLees.
Yes.
Commissioner Corvo.
Yes.
Commissioner Walter.
yes, with the conditions stated.
Vice Chair Raffel.
Yes.
Chair T.
Yes, with the conditions stated.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Mr. Miluk, our executive director will be in touch with you shortly. Thank you very much for taking on this journey and application.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to move to our next application under new business, sub-item B. This is for the installation of a bronze bust of Michaela Bacidas, which is a martyr of the Peruvian independence at the corner of Mill Street and Market Streets, also known as Peru Square in the Great Falls Historic District. It will be a presentation and discussion by Melby Davila. And the PR Innovative USA, no formal action will be taken. Executive Director, do you have a report for this application?
I guess give him a minute, we might have lost him.
Right, let's see.
Gianfranco?
I think he's having, connection issues. Gianfranco?
Just give him a moment.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. My phone disconnected. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. So I just read out the, sub-item B under new business. Do you have a, report that you can provide for us?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I would like to provide my report. We have a proposal for the donation of a piece of public artwork in the form of a bust, which is like the upper part of a person, not a whole statue as opposed to a statue, of Michaela Bastidas, a martyr of the Peruvian independence. And I'd like to familiarize you with where the proposed installation will be and some of the details that I'm aware of before we invite Ms. Melody Davila to testify and make her a presentation to you. I'm going to switch over to photos and open up a photo to show you the location of the proposed location for the installation. Okay, so on screen you see a large building at a corner in the Great Falls Historic District, and you see a street sign, naming Mill Street. So this is the corner of Mill and Market Street, a very prominent corner in the Great Falls Historic District, very historic corner. Formerly was the site of the Hamilton Mill. The Hamilton Mill was, I believe, consumed by fire, and this new building was installed by the Wall Street Development some years ago. And this is not a historic building that you're looking at in this photo. You can see that there is quite a prominent, nose, they call this, on the sidewalk. So you have some parking spaces off of Mill Street, specific to the businesses at the Hamilton Square building. This is called the Hamilton Square building. And you see that there's a lot of space here where this temporary restaurant seating is located as well. And there's a lot of space out here on the corner. And this is a notable location and a prominent location in what is called the Peru Square area. So Peru Square is a designation that was bestowed by the City Council for this area of the historic district along Market Street, mostly from this corner up toward City Hall, going toward City Hall on Market Street, comprising of about 3 blocks, where there is an intense number of Peruvian businesses and specifically restaurants and other businesses that are specifically Peruvian. So Peru Square was a designation bestowed by the City Council in recent times. So this is the proposed location of the bus. Of course, the bus of Michaela is symbolic to to the Peruvian community, and this is what makes sense out of proposing to install it at this location. I believe I have another picture. See how this worked out here. No, I have to open another window to show you a picture of the bus. I think it would be a good idea to show that as well. And I have to grab that file. As well. No, this is probably not the right folder. Okay, here we are. Yeah, I'm having a hard time opening this, so let me try to close out some of the other files that I have open. I'm going to try opening it from here. Okay, I've got it on the screen. I have to move it into position now. These files kind of being a problem. Okay. Here's an image of the bust. This bust is already fabricated. This is a bronze bust of the Michaela, and you can see it's very beautifully executed, very professionally done. And this is something that we'll learn more about from Melody Davila, and she provides some testimony. So she started with a photo of the bust itself, the place where it will be located. There's not a pedestal yet. That's something, of course, we'll discuss more about. This is another image that was provided of a bust from Michaela. It's not a very good picture. It's very dark. You can't really see a lot of detail, but this is another bust that's installed in Peru. And we have also here information that was sent out to you in the pre-meeting packet of the proposal and the request for the bus to be installed. So we'll just take a look at this real quick on screen. Gustavo writes that the Peruvian community has strong ties with Paterson, which has solidified with elected leaders, and our contribution to this great city, which has opened its arms to all Peruvian immigrants. There are visitors from Peru who return, in turn visit their families and take in all the beauty Paterson has to offer, and we think having a part of our own history in Paterson would only give greater pride to our city. So there's some other background here. I won't read all of it, but I wanted to make sure I put it on the screen so that we could have people who are watching perhaps read it. But the significance of Michaela, will be discussed a little bit by Melody, and I'd be able to fill in some additional details during our discussion period. So in conclusion, the statement states that Michaela Bastidas is an example of leadership and dedication for her ideals in the less fortunate, and that is why we want to pay tribute to the brave and self-sacrificing woman, not only from Peru but also from the Americas. So I think that I would not want to take more away from Melvy's presentation, and I will reserve further comments. There's a biography here provided as well as part of the proposal of exactly what her background is and how it's related to Peruvian culture, and also I think Melvy will be able to tell us more about how it's believed this is related to our city and to Peru Square in this area in particular. So, Mr. Chairman, the other part of my presentation that I would like to mention is that the City of Paterson's Municipal Council, has designated Peru Square, and there has been the installation of other similar monuments in other parts of the city. There are two that I'm aware of. There may be others that over time have been installed by other immigrant communities in Paterson who have brought the story of their independence to be present here in their new community. One of the locations that I'm thinking of is the Triangle Park near the Paterson train station, across from the Paterson post office. That is now has a bus similar to this proposal, a bus for the Dominican community, the Dominican civil rights leader, and also an installation in Westside Park by the Bangladeshi community that lives right nearby the park, that honors a major event in Bangladeshi independence. So that's actually a kind of a large installation that is one of many throughout the world, in fact. The bust of Michaela, by my research, if it were to be installed here in Paterson, would be the only one of its kind, possibly in the world, to be installed outside of Peru. There are several statues and busts to her honor in Peru. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I wanted to mention that about the existence of other similar monuments that have been approved and encouraged by our municipal council that were proposed by other communities, and this is similar in that regard. This is the first one, however, that is in a historic district. We do not have a citywide ordinance that provides for a public process of review of these kinds of proposals. They, just like the designation of historic sites, however, they have been sort of brought to our elected officials for discussion and for vetting as an example of how these were accomplished in the past. I thought this would be important for everyone to know as we discuss this and we think about this topic. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much for your introduction. At this moment, I'd like to ask the applicant to come forward and be sworn in for testimony. Can we have Melvy Davila?
Okay, Melvy, it looks like you're on mute. If you can hear me, you have to take your thing off of mute so you can speak. Are you there? Okay, Melvy, we can't hear you if you're speaking now.
Oh,
Okay, looks like, yes.
okay.
Yes, now we can hear you. Hi, Melvy.
Hi.
Melvy, do you swear to tell do you swear to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed. Tell your name and about yourself, your organization, and the background for your proposal, please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my name is Melvy Davila. I'm public relations officer and activist in the community with more than 15 years in New Jersey, always linked to the city of Paterson. I was, my first time that I set out from my home was to looking for something similar to my country, to my Peru. And I know, of course, in somebody spoke me about Paterson, and I went to my consulate in Paterson. My consulate opened, of course, all the possibilities to link with the community, and thank God I found different leaders in the community, and I started my activities working for the Committee for Immigrant Rights based in the city of Paterson in 2006, 2007, 2008 until probably 2011. I was involved in different activities related to immigration. At first, I was working as volunteer in the campaign for Congressman Bill Pascual with Lady Christy Morales, also for Senator Robert Menendez. I was a director of the group Estamos on Bus, and also I was volunteer in different campaigns for consumer Latinos issues, of course, trying to help my community. And right now, I lead a public relation agency that promotes Peruvian culture, gastronomy, and Peruvian professionals who stand up in the United States. We also carry a social fundraiser every year since 5 years ago. I organize a special fundraiser for Christmas for the children in Paterson, who is organizing the restaurant Somos Tu Peru, that located in Market Street, in 94 Market Street. This is our 5 years, annual 5 years that we continue doing for the children in Christmas. And approximately we help like 140 kids for this moment. So always I'm doing events for the Peruvian community, for the Latino community in Paterson, and my heart is linked with the Paterson community. I live in Perth and I started I organized the Peru to the World Expo, who is the expo, largest expo promoting the Peruvian culture in the United States. That is the reason we have 10 years. This June 24th, we have 10 years of this expo, and so we decided with our group to do an event in Paterson, in the Great Fall of Paterson, who is similar to some parts in the Andean of Peru, with the water, with the river, and with the stones, a very nice historic part. We decided to organize this event and unveil the bust of Micaela Bastidas, who is a martyr who sacrificed her life for the freedom of America, not only for Peru, but for different, because our territory from Peru was larger than now. Was included Bolivia, included Ecuador, Colombia, part of Venezuela, Argentina. So we decided to pay tribute to this woman. That is a part of our reason. We would like to respectfully request that the past of Micaela Bastidas have a permanent home in the beauty city of Paterson.
Thank you, Melody. Could you tell us a little more about the sculpture itself? Like who created it, who commissioned the sculpture, like who paid for it, and is the intention to donate the sculpture to the city of Paterson so the city will be able to care for it, and so forth. Can you tell a little more about that, please?
Sure. Thank you for the question. The Micaela Bastida bus was specifically created by the Peruvian artisan in the Andean of Peru, to donate to the city of Paterson for this occasion to celebrate our bicentennial of Peru. It's a great occasion to remember a brave woman as Micaela Bastidas, who represents dedicated woman, who represent the liberty, who represent the fighter, who represent a beautiful woman that sacrificed her life for the freedom of others. This artisan lives in approximately 15 hours in the Andean of Peru, and the bus was created approximately 15 days before the event, 15 days before the event was in June 24th in the Great Falls of Paterson. And we brought from Peru specifically to dedicate, because we decide in our group of women, we decide to donate to Paterson. We would like to introduce, if you allow me, introduce one of our ladies who is in this teleconference right now. Her name is Tammy Silva. She's right now hearing our teleconference also, and we are very happy, and we will be more than happy if, of course, the commissioners can decide to approve our to do a reality our dreams.
Okay, Melvie, thank you very much. Would you like to have the other person speak? Would they want to say something? They have to go off mute if they want to say something.
I will be more than happy. Tammy, would like to give some words? Tammy?
Just remember to take your mute off if whoever is going to speak. The mute button is on. She might be having a hard time.
Tammy, can you hear me? Hello? How can I need to, is she in mute? Hello?
Here she comes. There she is.
Sorry, my apologies. Hi, my name is Tammy Silva, and we would like to respectfully request for our bus to be displayed in the great city of Paterson. Like Melvie said, Paterson.
Excuse me. Oh, sorry. This is the chair. Can we have you sworn in?
Sure.
Executive Director?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Tammy, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can you please say your name for the record, please?
Tammy Silva.
Okay, thank you. Proceed.
Thank you so much. Yes, and we would like to respectfully request for our bus to be displayed within Paterson, or for our presence to be received by us. Like Melvie said, the great city of Paterson is a great home to a huge population of Peruvians, Americans, as well as other Latino communities that also enjoy our culture. Micaela, she represents a lot to not only the Peruvian Americans, but I think to a lot of women. She has a great history, and it would be an honor for us to be able to see her and the city of Paterson, and for the city to accept our guests.
Thank you, Tammy. And Melvie, does that conclude your testimony?
Yes, I would like to again give a special thanks to to the chairman, to the executive director, to all of the members of this board, and just consider our community has a strong ties with Paterson. We think probably like 40,000 Peruvian lives right now in Paterson. We have many events promoting our culture, bringing different businesses to Peru Square right now. So it's really Paterson consider our home. Thank you so much again for all your considerations, and thanks again.
Thank you,
Melody. Mr. Chairman, I have one other person on the line that I think that needs to testify before we go into our next session, and that would be the owner of the Hamilton Square area that I showed in the photo before, and that's Mr. George McCloof. We're all familiar with Mr. McCloof, and he's been patiently waiting on the line to testify here. So George, if you can hear me, you're off mute. Would you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. McCloof, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Can't hear you again.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I had to switch audio options. So, I apologize, every one of these systems is a little bit new. I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm happy to accommodate the location of the bus on my property. As you were pointing out, and as the executive director was pointing out earlier in the presentation, there's a wide piece of sidewalk. Only a small portion of that is public. The remainder is on private property, where you saw the temporary tent located. That's all private. That's above what used to be the raceway. There was a small portion of the raceway that was exposed when we first acquired the property, and the parking that was alluded to earlier, that's also over what used to be a portion of the lower raceway. It hasn't been part of the lower raceway system for at least 75 or maybe 100 years. It was closed up, and it's just a reinforced concrete pipe. But that's where the building is located with a setback. I'm not quite sure exactly where this bus will be located. I'm assuming it'll be somewhere on the corner. The one thing I just like to caution whoever's going to set the bus is that corner, not only is it active, but it's a difficult turn for the buses to maneuver. When they come down Mill Street, the bus that comes down Market Street, obviously you don't have any issue, but there are a lot of buses where they're ending their routes, and they take a sharp right turn from Mill onto Market. And the reason that I'm mentioning this is because we had some trees, some plantings that we had located there early on, just like there are on the Mill Street side, but the buses continually were unable to negotiate that turn, and they would knock the plantings out. So everybody's got to be very sensitive about where it's actually located so that it's not subject to being hit by a bus or any other large vehicle for that matter. The only other question I will say is this is now going to be located on private property. It may be the only instance that I can think of where a more or less public display is located on private property, and I'm quite honored that my property is being selected for this. But my question only will be, who is to maintain it? Is the statue, I think the executive director alluded to this earlier, I believe it's the intent of the applicant to donate this property, this bus to the city, and that would give the city the right to maintain it.
I'm assuming that's the case. That's really the only question I have, and I'm happy to have this happen as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. McClure. John Franco, can you provide some intel on the maintenance after the ownership is shifted to the city? Just for confirmation.
Yes, sure. We explored these topics one other time to install a donated plaque on a private building that was, put on the building. It wasn't actually in the sidewalk, so it was a series of agreements that have to be made up and signed. So for example, any donation to the city of Paterson needs to be approved by the city council to accept the donation. So there would need to be a resolution to accept the donation. Then, as part of the resolution, they probably direct the mayor's office to have the ability to execute any documents that would be necessary. So we would have a donation agreement that would be signed by the donors after we have the permission from the council to accept the donation. And the probably in that agreement we would talk about the city taking ownership and being responsible for the maintenance and display of the bus, because no one who donates something like this would want the city to put it in in the basement somewhere and cover it up with a box, right? So that's something you would want to have in the agreement. Would have to say this thing has to be put on display. It has to be kept in good order by the city. The city needs to accept those responsibilities and make that happen. And then there'd be another agreement between Mr. McClure, the owner of the property where the installation would occur, giving permission for the city's property to be on his property. There might need to be some kind of an easement made for the city to be able to go and maintain, the installation over time. Any notification criteria of needing to notify Mr. McClure prior to going onto his property. All that kind of stuff gets folded into these a few documents that helps to make this possible and memorialize all of the agreements and responsibilities of various parties. So that's how I believe it would be done. This is how we pursued it with other similar projects.
Thank you, Executive Director. At this moment, I'd like to open it up to the commissioners to ask questions to the applicant and also Mr. McClure. I see Commissioner Walters' hand.
Yes, my question to the applicant is about a pedestal for this thing. You just can't have the bus just sitting there and open. So has a pedestal been designed? Has a pedestal been purchased or contracted to be made? What's happening with a pedestal?
Thanks for the question, Commissioner. The pedestal, we have to order to create the pedestal as soon as we have the dimensions, as soon as we have the style we'll need to put in this place. This is our first time. We are not familiar with these issues, but sure we'll have to go to speak with Mr. Gianfranco or Mr. McClure to know how much will be the dimensions and the place, and of course what kind of material we can use.
Okay, thank you. Please get with John Franco about those details. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Executive. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Rich, and thank you, Melby, for your answer on the last question. Melby, first and foremost, I think this is a great undertaking that you guys are doing for the area that is in question. My question for you is, and maybe you mentioned it earlier, what's the timeline? I know there's Independence. Can you just state for the record the projection of when you imagine this to be installed and that kind of thing? Thank you.
I need some if you could repeat it, or maybe Tammy, did you understand very well? Can you translate it for me?
Can you hear me?
Sí, escuchaste la pregunta.
Me dijo, dice, aproximadamente a qué fecha le gustaría instalar
¿Qué fecha? Okay. Commissioner, we think that will depend of the details. When we have the details, of course, we would like to put before the winter, because in winter it's not a good season to make this kind of celebration. Depends, of course, how long the fabricants will give to us the work terminated.
Thank you, Melby. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions from the commissioners? Comments? Recommendations?
I have a quick question. This is Commissioner Delis.
Confirmed.
I do know that Miguel is very well respected by the Peruvian community. Therefore, I think that it's a great idea to place the Micaela's bus within the Peruvian Square, especially knowing that the owner of the property, the corner property, is okay with placing the bus there. But one of my concerns is who will be maintaining. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner DeLeese. I think, I believe that would be a conversation that would happen once the location is understood, because there's kind of this, gray area between public and private property. And once it's kind of shifted over to the public, or the city owns it, then I think the city would negotiate, maintenance. Executive Director, can you clarify that or add anything additional to that?
Maybe we lost him again, but I think that was stated earlier.
Hold on, he's having trouble.
We translate it to the city, and the city would maintain it.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay. Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had something something pushed here that wasn't supposed to be, but yes, just to confirm, I think there's absolutely the city to accept the donation would have to accept the maintenance responsibility as well.
Thank you, Executive Director. I see Rich's hand up.
Alright, that's up from when I made that last statement.
Chairman Tate, this is Commissioner Corvo. My hand is up.
Confirmed.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I just have a question also regarding the pedestal and the construction. When you say you're donating the bus, I'm assuming that the pedestal, however it's going to be made, will be run by the HPC and Director John Franco with materials. But is that also part of the donation? In other words, Paterson isn't paying towards any of this?
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. The pedestal is in charge of our donation also. We are responsible for the pedestal.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Do we have any additional questions or comments for the applicant?
One thing I just want to mention, it is very, very nice of George to agree to host it on his property, and that's good citizenship in this city.
I'm happy to oblige, and I hope the commissioners have a favorable recommendation or review of this. I know you don't actually have to approve it, but I think it's a wonderful idea. And by the way, that tent that's there, it's a brand new Peruvian restaurant that's being opened. Perfect timing.
This is Chair Tate. Just want to kind of reiterate what I mentioned earlier. I think this is a great undertaking, and it's a good addition to the city and this community. And I look forward to when it's erected for all the experience and take a look at.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes.
I would request this, that the commissioners could put together a resolution that directs me to write a letter to the city council memorializing our review here tonight and support for this proposal.
Confirmed. If there are no questions, then we'll close down this portion of the meeting, and we'll have to incorporate the condition that the executive director will review all components of the bust and the subsequent pedestal moving forward, and he'll send a letter to the city, basically showing our recommendation for approval of the proposal. That makes sense.
That makes sense.
All right. Can we get a motion on the floor?
I would like to move this motion.
I'll second it, Rich.
Secretary, did you get that? It was Vice Chair Rafael, and it was seconded by Commissioner Walter.
Confirm, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me.
Can we get a roll call?
Commissioner DeLees.
Yes.
Commissioner Corbo.
Yes.
Commissioner Walter.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rafael.
Yes.
Chair Tate. Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say to the applicants, it's a great project, and we look forward to hearing more information about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Executive Director, and special thanks to Mr. Josh McClure for his great approval and his great decision for our community. Thank you. I'm so excited.
I hope we all get invited to the dedication.
Thank you.
Ms. Melvey, the executive director will be in touch with you with next steps.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Okay. So at this time, I'd like to move to number 4 on our agenda, which is the public portion.
Open it.
Can we get a motion?
I think Kelly made the motion to open it, I'll make the second.
Perfect.
Rich.
Tim, did you get did you record that?
Yes, I did, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call?
You're on mute, Tim.
Commissioner DeLees,
Yes.
Commissioner Corbo,
Yeah.
Commissioner Walter,
Yes.
Vice Chair Raffel,
Yes.
Chair Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Secretary, can you provide the call-in number to the public? And we will open the floor for 5 minutes.
Those who would like to participate in the public portion may call in at 973-321-1579 and enter meeting ID 711-680-001. Again, those who would like to participate in the public portion may call in at 973-321-1579 and enter meeting ID 711-680-001.
The time is now 9:33 p.m. We will be closing it down at 9:38. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I received a text from IT that you have no callers in the queue.
Confirmed. The time now is 9:38 p.m. and the line is officially closed. Can we get a motion to close the public portion?
Motion to close.
Second?
Okay, Secretary Henderson, did you get did you record the motion second?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Corbo moved and Vice Chair Rafael second.
Confirmed. Can we have a roll call for this?
Commissioner DeLees.
Yes.
Commissioner Corbo.
Yes.
Commissioner Rafael. Or Commissioner Walter, excuse me.
Yes.
Vice Chair Rafael.
Yes.
Chair Tate.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, executive director, secretary, and all the applicants. Have a great evening. Good night,
Good
everyone.
night, everyone.
Wait. A motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I call the meeting adjourned
Joking.
at 9:38 p.m.
Actually, I think we forgot to do that last time too.
Yes. Oh. All in favor? Can we do that?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. 9:39 p.m. Have a good evening, everyone.
Everyone.
Good night.